Hi there, it's Michelle from CNC Designs. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from New Zealand, and I'm going to show you how to make this really cute record player card. So it does fold flat to fit in an envelope, and there is room on the back for you to write your message. But when you take it out of the envelope, you pop up the record player side, and you have your little message there. This piece is just to give it stability, so it can stand up like that. And I've made it so you can move the arm of the record player, and the record will actually spin, so you can spin the record as well. So this is using the For the Record stamp set and several different dies. So you will need dies from several different sets, or I will explain how to do some of the things without a die if you want. I created this for a swap with other demonstrators, and so I'm doing this video to show everybody how to make this card, and I hope you love it as much as I do. As soon as I saw the stamp set and the samples in the catalog, I couldn't wait to give it a go and try to make a record player. I did see a couple similar record players from other demonstrators' videos online. So some of this is similar to what you may have already seen, but I've modified it all so you could probably make two out of one piece of cardstock. And I'll step you through, and all the products I use will be listed in the description below this video. Plus I'll be showing you some measurements on this video, and you can do a screenshot if you'd like. So that way you can contact your demonstrator to order all these goodies, because I'm sure you're going to want to make this after you see the video. And if you're in New Zealand and don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be yours. And you can contact me at michellekritchley.stampinup.net. I also have a blog. I haven't created a blog for this yet, but I may do. I've got some other cards I've done from this set, so I might be doing a blog showing you more details. So let's get started. First of all, this is my template. So I measured it up and made a template out of some scrap cardstock to decide and determine how to make it. The one that I saw that I got this idea from, she had done everything as separate pieces that were glued together. I've done this so it's all just one piece. So the background cardstock is 10.5 by 21 centimeters. So you'll be able to get two out of an A4 card. So there you go. I've done it with early Espresso. And then you want your designer series paper to be slightly smaller. So that's 10 by 2.5 centimeters. Now I'll hold this here for a second if you want to do a screenshot. You can get a screenshot of those notes. And then I will show the back with more notes about what else to do. So here's the designer series paper. I've made a lot of these using the In Good Taste designer series paper. So it's got a nice kind of wood grain look on it, and the idea was the old-fashioned record players from when I was young. They had kind of a wood grain exterior, but you could change it up into any colors that you'd like. Now, what you need to do is you need to glue this paper down before you cut it. That's the easiest way to do it. So if you want, you could put an adhesive sheet on the back and just stick it down. And I usually do use adhesive sheet. I quite like that. But just for the video, I'm going to show you, I'm just going to use my Tombow glue. Now most people use this end, the pointy tip, but you might not even be aware that there's another end that has like a spreader, kind of like the old spreaders we used to have at school. So you squish the glue out there, and then you can spread it around. So that makes it easier, and you can put a larger quantity. So that's the front of the designer series paper. So I'm just going to put some glue on so you can see just squishing it gives you a nice wide swath of glue. And you want to make sure, whatever adhesive you use, you want to make sure you cover the entire back, because when you cut it, you want it to stay in place. So you won't be able to glue any bits down that might be where the cut lines are. So give it a good decent amount of glue, and that way it'll stay in place after it's been cut. So once I squish some of that out, I'm just using this spreader tip just to spread some of the glue around. But don't take too long because Tombow turns tacky if it dries a bit, and you want it still to be wet enough so you can move it around on your paper. So I'm going to stick that. Now another tip is, instead of picking up the wet thing and sticking it down, if you just gently put down the piece you want it to be on, and because it's liquid I should be able to slide it into place. So I'm just sliding it to give me just a bit of an edge around there. And let me get my bone folder to spread that around. You don't want to put the glue too close to the edges because you don't want it to ooze out, but you want to be able to get everything stuck down. Okay. Now originally I thought I would measure it up and then tell you how to cut the different pieces to put on to give a gap around everything, but that's a lot of cutting and a lot of extra work that I don't think you need. So now let me just move that out of the way. We're going to cut the base. So I'm going to get my Stampin' Trimmer here, and I've done this measured up in centimeters. Now your Stampin' Trimmer does come with inches and centimeters at the top, but the arm is in inches. However, you might not be aware, you can purchase another arm, the Paper Trimmer Metric Blade Guide. So you can purchase another blade guide with the centimeters, the metric on it. So I've already swapped mine out. So this is the one that came with it, which is in inches. And you just pull up the top and you can easily pull these off. And I've changed it to one that actually now has centimeters. So I'm not sure if you can see that. There's centimeters. Some people simply just take some of the grid paper and glue that to one side so they can have inches and centimeters on there. So what we want to do here, I'll bring in my little template again, is there's going to be 1.5 centimeter gap between the side and the cut line on both sides. So that's what that means, 1.5 centimeter. And we're going to cut the center from 3 centimeters to 13.5 centimeters. So that cut point is 3, and that's 13.5 centimeters. But you want it to be at 1.5 centimeters from the side. So we're going to have 2 cuts in there before we score it. So the best thing to do is line up the edge of your cardstock with 1.5 centimeters. So right down here, it's 1.5 centimeters. And then slide your blade till you find the 3 on the arm, the 3 centimeters on the arm. If you're still using the other arm, you can look on here to find out what's equivalent in inches. So here, 3 centimeters is 1 3/16 inches. So if you find the 3 centimeters, look at what it says for inches and then make sure you put your blade in that spot. So again, we want 1.5 centimeters on that side, and we want 3 centimeters down. So as long as I don't push down, I haven't cut yet, but I'm lining up, and you might not be aware of this. See the little groove right there? That shows you where the blade is positioned. So if I make sure that line there is pointing to the 3, not sure if you can see this because of the glare. So that line there is pointing to the 3 centimeters, and that's where it's going to cut. And I'm going to slide it down till I get to 13.5 centimeters here. Again, I just want to make sure I haven't moved it, so I'm 1.5 centimeters over, starting at 3 centimeters there. Hold it down and slide it to 13.5 centimeters. And then while I have it here, I'm going to slide it back up to the 3 And I do this a couple times because of the fact it's going through two pieces, a cardstock and DSP. And so I can feel that it's gone smoothly this third time I moved it. Now without moving this, that's at 13.5, I can just pull it up and you can see I've cut through that perfect little line. Now this side, I want to do the same thing. So now I'm going to measure the 1.5 here. So that side I'm going to put to 1.5. Make sure it's flat up at the top. I've already got the blade sitting at 13.5 centimeters. So I can just slide that over. I've already got the blade sitting at 13.5 centimeters. And so I can now press and slide it up to 3. And then I'm just going to come back to 13.5 and do that again just to check. And then open it up, slide the blade out of the way. So there we go. So there's my cut sides. I hope that was 1.5, yeah. Okay, this one looks wider, but I think it's an illusion. Now we're going to score. So this time we're going to use the gray score bit. When you change these arms, they don't come with the blade or the score. You take that from your other arm, and the easy way to do it is there's a slot down the bottom here. And when you get to that slot, if you just pull up gently, it just slides out. So that's how you can change your blades over. So now I'm going to do my scoring. So back to my little cheat sheet. I want to score at 3 centimeters and 4.5 centimeters only on that little skinny bit, top and bottom. And then on the wide part, I want to score at 12 centimeters and 3.5 centimeters. And then the last part, I want to score at 18 centimeters. So I'll leave that there so I can look at it. So we're going to move this edge up to 3 centimeters. And using my scoring tool, my scoring bit, that's the gray one, I'm going to pop it down, and we're at 3 centimeters, and I'm going to slide it just till I see the slit, because I only want to do this part down here. Again, it has the little line on it, same as the cutting blade, to show you where it lines up. The other thing I know is it's 9. I'm pointing at the 9 because it's 10.5 centimeters, so the line of 9 to the edge is exactly as far as I want to go. Then I can just pulling this up, so I'm not scoring there. I just pulled it up so I could slide it to the top. And now I'm going to come down to that line. Little bit difficult on camera because I can't get my head over there. And now the next one is 4.5 centimeters. Now if you're having difficulty seeing it, like when I was doing the dark card DSP, I couldn't see it very well. The other thing you could do is once you line it up there, just change the end of your Pick-a tool to the end with the little ball on it. So now we're at 4.5. So now I'll show you. So 4.5 on this side here, and I only want it to go where the line is. So I'll just go right between the middle, and I'll just push to the edge, and see there I'm scoring it with the tool. And the same down here where the line is, and I'm just going to pull it toward me. So whether you're using the scoring piece there or your end on the Pick-a tool, you can score it. So now the next one is at 12 centimeters, but this time I only want it to go between the lines. So since I have this in my hand, I'll just use that. So I want to go from 1 down to the line. So top to bottom line. And I'm giving it good pressure because there's cardstock underneath. And then the next one is 3.5 centimeters, which should line up with where I did my final cut. And again, from one line to the other line. And then the last bit, I'll have to pull the arm out for this. I want it to be at 18 centimeters. And so that's going to be the whole amount, so I can just simply use that scoring tool and go over a couple times. So that's it scored. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 score lines. So we'll pop this away for now. And I will show you how to fold it up. So now that we have that, you're going to want your bone folder here. You're just going to have to gently press it into the shape you want. So if we gently press that bottom piece forward, and then the second one is going to go back. Now before you push it all the way down, you want to manipulate these ones in the same position. So where the score lines are, you just want to manipulate it. And it should just fold over nice and gently. And that's when you want to then give it a nice burnish with your bone folder to give it in, keep it in place. And that's also why, because of the cutting, that's why we need it to have sufficient glue. If you did tape, unless you did several lines of tape, you might not have those edges glued shut. And then turn it over and just burnish your other scored lines. There we go. And this one here, we're going to fold forward, and we'll go ahead and burnish that. So now we have our shape for our record player, and that will be freestanding. So it folds flat, fits in the envelope perfectly. Maybe get an envelope to prove that. So there's your envelope, and it fits perfectly in the envelope, and then pop it open for display. Okay, so now the next step is the back. I'm just going to, this has got the measurements for the rest of the cardstock, so you can take a screenshot of that if you'd like. So the back, we want a piece of basic white cardstock. That's 14.8 by 10.5 centimeters, so the same size as the front of a normal card here in New Zealand. You also want a piece of basic black cardstock. A scrap piece is fine, but it's got to be at least 8 by 8 centimeters, because that's what we're going to make our record player, our record on. And then you want some basic white for the words. So the words at the top that says "for the record," you want that piece to be 1.5 by 9.5 centimeters long, which is about 1/2 inch by 3.5 inches, I believe. And then a scrap piece that you're going to stamp these words on. So let's get our record created. So for the record, you use that stamp, the main stamp here. Now, this stamp comes as one piece with the heart in the center. However, I watched some videos and thinking about it and looking at what other demonstrators have done, I decided to use a blade, and I cut out the center where the heart is. So I now have the heart as a separate stamp. So that way I can use the heart separately. If I want to do it all together in the future, I can simply just pop that back in the center, and I could just stamp it all as one piece. So if you haven't cut yours apart, that's fine. When you stamp this, we're going to be covering up the center anyway, so that won't be seen. So if yours still has a heart, that's fine. You're not going to see it, but I find it's much more useful having that as a separate stamp. So for this, we're going to stamp it with Versamark on our black, and then put black embossing powder on it. So hold on a moment. Now you could just stamp it in straight black ink on maybe a white cardstock if you want, to give you the same effect, the same look as a record player. But when we emboss it, it gives you that nice raised ridges, just like a record would have. So when I have a big stamp like this, I like to ink it up upside down like that. So I press, instead of putting the stamp to the ink, I put the ink to the stamp. And with Versamark, if you haven't used it before, it's a sticky ink that allows powder to be put on top of it. It doesn't dry as quickly as normal ink, and it's clear. So it's always a good idea to angle it slightly just to check in the light to see what parts are shiny. And if you see parts that aren't shiny, that means you missed the ink on there. Now I'm just going to ink some more because since I picked it up, I wanted to make sure nothing dried in the time I was talking about it. So this is my scrap, and I'm just going to give it nice pressure straight down with the Versamark ink. So you're not going to see a lot after I take this off. It'll just be shiny where the ink is. And because it's not a photopolymer stamp, I can't see through it to make sure that I've gotten all the edges, so I'm giving it good pressure. And then you can probably see a little shining there, okay? That's the Versamark that's going to pick up the powder. So now let's drop some powder on it. Oops. So I have a small container here. And so I'm going to do the black. I've done this just putting the clear embossing powder on the black cardstock, and it looks pretty good, but I think it looks much better with the black embossing powder as opposed to the clear. But you could try either way. There you go. So I'm going to heat this up to melt all that powder. And it doesn't matter that there's a bit of in the center because, like I said, I'm going to cover the center up. So I'll just move this out of the way and I will go heat that up off screen. So I'll pause it so you don't have to listen to my noisy heating. And I'll be right back. Okay, I've gone off screen and I've heated that up, and see now it's nice and shiny. And it also has texture like a record player would, so all the grooves in there. Now, you could either hand cut this if you want, but I'm not very good with fussy cutting a circle. But the largest circle die will cut that out, which is perfect. But before I go off screen to do my die cutting, I wanted to tell you about the other things we're going to die cut. So I'm going to die cut that to make the circle for the record player. Now the other things that I have on here, which I've already die cut, but I will just show you what I used for them. So the largest piece there, I've die cut a bit. This time I did a bit of gold. Some of them I've done silver and bronze. So a bit of foil, and I used a 1-inch circle punch for that, or if you have dies of that size, and that happens to be perfect size for the center of the record player. And then those two other circles, I used a 3/4 inch punch, and I just varied them from different colors, because those of you old enough to know, or if anybody has gone and seen a record recently, they usually had different color circles in the center, and there was the name of the album, and then the different different songs on there at the different ridges would usually be on the center part. Sometimes there'd be a logo and things, similar to the album cover. So I did that one, and then I used where's my other punch? I used a 1/2 inch punch for the smallest piece, and I've got a couple different colors I'm gonna go with, so I cut those ones, pre-cut those. I've also got other ones pre-cut, so I'll see which color I want to go with. So you can see you just layer them up and glue them together to make the center of the record. Then the other pieces I have, this here is supposed to be the on-off volume knob. So that outside piece there is the 3/4 inch punch. And so that's what that brown piece there is for. So that's the 3/4 inch punch. And then to make it so there's a smaller little knob on the top, little part to twist, I used this little circle die to cut that out, and it actually, when you press it, it gives you a bit of a ridge in there as well. This little circle is, I believe, supposed to be the sun or the moon that comes in the Inspiring Canopy dies. So that little circle is in that set of dies. So that's what that little circle is cut with. Then the other thing I've pre-cut is these pieces here, which I will show you how to put those together. So I've got one in cinnamon cider and one in the early espresso. They're the little tags, so I cut that with the tag die. So that's the little tag die, and that one has come from the Meadow dies. So the Meadow dies here has a little tag. So I've used that. You could just cut yourself a rectangle if you want, and you'll see in a minute how we put it together. But I like the interesting shape, and for the arm of the record player, see how the little circle is shown there? So it almost looks like, you know, the record player where we have it attached and screws and things. And this is the little handle that you would pick up to move it around. So one for here, and then there's one hiding under there. And then for this little bit, you just cut yourself a triangle. But I cheated, and I used the tiniest triangle from the stitch triangle dies. So these stitch triangle dies, I've used the little triangle that goes there, and I die cut a triangle out. So that's that one. Let me put everything next to each other so you can see. So those are those, and that is the center here, and that's a 3/4 punch, the big guy there, and that's a 1-inch punch. And then I've already done, I thought I already did, might not have, a black dot, which will be in the 1/2 inch, just to cover that up, and I'll explain that in a minute. Now the little arrow to show which way you're supposed to turn, this doesn't actually turn, but that little arrow is right there, and that one has come from the, hold on, so there's the die there, and that's from the Give It a Whirl dies. So in the Give It a Whirl dies, you get that to do arrows and other little arrows in here. So I'm just using that teeny tiny arrow there. And for that, what I suggest you do is put a bit of tear and tape on the back of your scrap white card. So see, I just put some tape there. So then when I run it through to cut out the arrow, it'll already have adhesive on the back, because it's so tiny, trying to glue down the little bits is very difficult, and you end up getting glue all over the place. And then I thought I was pretty clever coming up with this idea. For the arm, I've cut 2 pieces out of foil, and this is the die that is the stem from the Tulip dies. So this was from the Tulip die set, and it's the stem that cuts out the stem from the Tulip stamp set. So that's what this is, and it was a perfect curved arm. And what I did is on the gold, this one I'm using silver, some of the other ones I had gold arms. There's a sample. So that one I had the gold arm. So you run it through this way to get the top part, and then I turned the foil over and ran it through on the back of the foil to give me a mirror image. And I'm going to glue these 2 pieces together, and the reason for doing that is to make it stiffer, so when you use the arm it's not as flimsy. So I'm just going to die cut that, and I'm going to die cut the circle, and then we'll put this card together. So I'll just pop that over there so you can see the dies that I used. Okay, so I have die cut my record. I'm just going to do it a little off center, but still a circle. And I went ahead and I die cut a little arrow with the sticky on the back. Let's just poke that out. There we go. So let's put rest of this together. So we are going to glue these two pieces together. And as I said, you could just leave it blank on the back, but because I've made it so you can move the arm, it's best to have something on the back. So because you're not really going to see it, so it could just be plain cardstock if you don't want to use your foil cutting it, but I just was making it fairly realistic. So bit of glue there, line them both up, and because it's a mirror image, they stick together quite nicely. Let's set that down for now. Now, to finish off the record, we want to do our layers, and so I'm going to do this one with pink. Move those out of the way. I've still got a couple more left to make. So simply, it's easiest, just put that in the center there, and we will just put a little blue in the center. Just try to center it best we can. And then just layer it up. So you can choose whatever colors you want. My original prototype, I used a bit of designer series paper. If you have an interesting paper that you want to put in the center, and then I thought, oh, it might look good with a bit of foil around the edge to differentiate between the edge of the record and the label. So we're going to label that up. There we go. I'm going to put this underneath a block just to give it some weight and hold it in place. Okay. Now, our other bits and pieces, we will make the other parts. So I'll move these out of the way. That was just so you knew what size punches. I know Stampin' Up! Doesn't sell the punches anymore, so if you have dies or other punches, the circle punches. So what I did with this triangle piece, and you could, as I said, just cut your own triangle piece. I just cut it straight, just the edges off, because you're not going to see the bottom of it, but this makes it skinnier and makes it more of a little triangle. So we got that piece there. And then I'm going to fold over the cinnamon cider tag. So fold it in half. See how I fold it in half? And I'm just going to snip off those edges. So make it shape that way. And then open it up. Then you're just going to put a bit of glue on the inside here, if my Tombow decides to work. So just around the edges there. And grab your little triangle and just stick it over that circle, just so you have a little bit sticking out the top. And then while you have that, put some glue on this side. And then you can put the arm of your record in, your record player in. So that's, I'm going to turn it over. So we want the little circle part to be showing out front, so we're going to stick this together like that. So that's the arm. And that's just nicely fits that flat part there. And I've got some tweezers that are the kind that stay closed, so do that, just hold it for a second to get it to stay in place, or if you have a peg, that would work. Now the other side, we're going to do similar things, so we're going to fold that in half. So this one is in early espresso, and fold it in half. So this one could just be any shaped, any rectangle shape. It doesn't have to be the same, but I just find it easier. So just fold that in half. This time we're not snipping the edges off because you're not going to see them so much. I find that when you heat it, sometimes your record gets warped. You don't want a warped record. Okay, that's better. Now, that's going to be the other side. So we need to put a hole in this end here because we're going to hold it together with a brad. So you will need the little mini brads. So you need a black one and a white one. Or you could have other colors if you wanted, but Stampin' Up! Sells them in a set with white and black. They have the mini round ones and the small rectangular square ones. And I use, when I'm going to poke a hole through, I just use a piece of foam. This used to be a mouse pad back when we used to need mouse pads that had the because of the rolling mouse, the ball on the inside of the mouse. So I just use that and change the pick a tool to the pointy pick and just poke a hole down this end and give it a bit of a wiggle because it has to be big enough to get that little brad through. And I just go on both sides, same spot, just to make sure. Okay, so I've poked a hole down that side. And before we put that together, I'm going to stick this on the top. So I'm going to stick a little black circle on the top. The reason I'm doing that is because the brad, top of the brad is so skinny, it would go right through that hole. So it's not going to stay in place. My original prototype, I used the square brad, so it did stay. But this kind of gives it more decoration as well. So we're just going to glue a little circle. Now that was done with the 3/4 inch circle punch. Or you could just cut, you could even just cut a little rectangle to go there if you want. And I'm just going to pop that over where the hole was. Now it's going to be bigger than it needs to be. So it's going to stick off top and bottom, but that just kind of makes it interesting. Record players were always made differently. All the bits were there, the turntable and the arm and the volume controls, but they were all look slightly different. And now I'm going to poke a hole through the black, so we're going to be able to get our brad through. So I'm only going to poke it through the black, and I'm just turned it over, and I'm going to poke it over here, so it's kind of central. Okay. Now I'm going to take our little white brad to give us some contrast, poke it through the hole there, and then poke that through the arm of a record player. Now keeping in mind the record's going to be sitting here, so we've got to make sure our arm's coming this way. And so now the arm swivels. Now you want to open up your brad, secure it. So hopefully this is all on camera. I haven't been watching. So you notice it sticks out too far. I've got a solution for that. So we're going to fold the top over. So we opened it up, we fold the top over, and then we're just going to fold those edges. Oh wait, I just want to make sure I pushed it down far enough. I did this before. I didn't push it far enough down. So push your brad far enough down so we don't have a lot sticking out the top. Hopefully you can see. There we go. So it's nice and the top edge is kind of flat. So we have those bits sticking out. Fold the side over, and then you just fold those over the brown part to secure it. So there's no glue in there, and the reason there's no glue is because you want the arm to be able to move, or I want the arm to be able to move. So this is simply moving with the brad in place, and the brad is holding that down. Now I go ahead and pop a dimensional on it, and because it's dark color I went with the black dimensionals. So that dimensional there is going to hold the brad down as well. Okay, but you don't want it super tight. So that's our arm done. Our LP is done. Now let's do our button. So I've already done the arrow, and it's got sticky on the back, so I'm just going to peel that sticky off. That's just double-sided tape. I'm just going to peel the double-sided tape off my little arrow. You don't need to put the arrow. I thought about maybe doing a little button, or you could use a diamante or something like that. So put my little arrow onto that little circle. Doesn't matter which direction you're going, it's just to make it look right. And I just kind of tried to curve the back a little as I put it down, so it just curves up slightly. And being tape, you can manipulate it. Now if I put glue on here, Tombow, I'd just have a gluey mess all over my fingers. It's just too tiny to do that to. Now on the back of this, I put a dimensional as well. And again, I used the black dimensional, which happens to be the perfect size for it. And that gives it some height. So what I'm trying to do is mimic, you know, the knobs, you know, the height of a little knob that you twist. Okay. Now, oh, one thing I forgot about our little needle arm. We need the needle. You don't need the needle. You don't actually see the needle when you do it, but I'm a sucker for precision. So I just grab a tiny rhinestone. So see the tiny rhinestone? And I just pop it on the inside. I do remember as a child having to get new needles and being told off my parents because they were expensive. They were made out of diamonds apparently. So even though you're not really going to see that, it just makes, I know it's there. The little diamond on the inside. So the other thing is we need a circle in the middle of our record. So just eyeball it. Hopefully it's right, otherwise it's going to go crooked. So I don't know if you can see me poking that. There we go. Close enough. Now, where's the base of our card? So those are all our little bits and pieces put together. We need the base of our card. There it is. So for the base of our card, you're going to have the record go there. It's slightly offset because you got your little knob there, and this piece is going to go there. Okay, so decide where it's going to be, and it actually comes right up to the edges the way I've cut it, but doesn't matter because nothing's going to block it. So once you decide where that's going, put it down, press your hole there, so that's poking a hole right through. And now we can put our spindle on, which is our black brad. Pop him through and open it in the back. There you go. And just check that it does spin. Yes, I can see it's a bit lopsided, but that's okay. Got a lopsided record. Then it's just a matter of sticking things together, sticking things on. So a bit of glue on the little knob. And we'll just pop that over here. And this has got the black dimensional on it already, so just peel that off. And so I like to have it kind of lined up this direction. And just eyeball where you want that to go. So pop it on, hold it down. And so now we've got our arm. Going too far. We've got the arm, and I can move it over here, on there, take it off the record, put it on the record, and then the record spins. So now let's finish decorating. So that's the difficult part. The rest is the fun stamping part. As of this point, we haven't done any stamping. So you've got the card that's going to go on the back, and on this one I am going to put this long stamp that came in the set, and I'm going to stamp that in Blushing Bride. Now when I made my sample ones, if I tried to choose a color that sort of went with some color here, because there's not a lot of color on the card, but when you're stamping this, if it's a dark color, like if I chose the darker green or blue or whatever color I went with, like this one here, I went with the green or the red, I stamped off before I stamped on the cardstock, because it would be too dark, because I put words in there. So it's a very long stamp, but this is light color, so I chose a light color for the video so I could just stamp the one time. But if you're doing a dark color, you do want to stamp off to make sure that it's not too dark on your card. Okay, and then so that I stamped in Blushing Bride, which matches that little piece of card in the middle. And this is where having the heart separate comes in handy. But before I stamp the heart, I want to stamp the words. And so I'm stamping the words over the lines I've just done. That's why it needs to be light enough to be seen. In my original cards, I used the Stamparatus because I was making a lot in one go, so it made it quite easy to do. So we'll just stamp the words roughly in the center. There we go, close enough. And then just gonna add a bit of bling by doing that heart on either side. Now I wouldn't be able to do that if I left the heart attached to the record player on the inside, see? Because that would be in the center of the record player. And it would be near impossible. Hopefully you can see this. I'm seeing a lot of shadow. I'm hoping that it's not making it too dark of a video. And then the other thing I need to stamp are the other words. So here's a piece of cardstock that's 1.5 by 9.5, and I'm going to do the words for the record in black. And then I will use a punch to flag the end of it. So I want this to be fairly close to that side, hopefully centered. That's the other reason I use the Stamparatus, is because if it didn't come out dark enough, I could re-ink it and do it darker. But for the camera, I'm just doing. So see that that is a bit smudged. I'm going to try the other side, and then if that doesn't come out, I will just leave it as is. Because with the Stamparatus, I could have just inked it up and re-stamped it, but because I can't see through the stamp, I've only got one shot at it. Okay, that's better. Okay, we'll go with that one. And I'm going to use, I believe it's called the triple tag punch. Slide it right through to the end. Sometimes if the cardstock is a little bit wider than the groove there, if you turn it over and just use your finger, so I'm holding this with one finger, manipulate it to make sure that it's cutting. So I'm looking at this end and making sure that that's cutting center. before I push it through, and that gets nice center, nice flagged center. And then the other words I want to do are the "You're My Favorite Song," and I'm going to match up with the Blushing Bride pink on the back. I forgot to stamp that earlier. And this is going to be fussy cut out to put on the side. One more thing I just realized I haven't stamped yet is the heart on my record player. So looking at record players online, I was looking at images and stuff. A lot of them had like a logo. So I decided the heart's going to be my logo on my record player. So I'm going to put the heart logo here. So that's the little logo for the brand of record player. The Stampin' Up Heart record player. Okay. So now we're going to pop this all together. So this is going to go on the back, and you only want to glue on this section here. And my little cheat sheet shows, it says put glue here for backing. So the squiggly parts there is where the glue is going for the backing. So only on those squiggly parts. So here and there. And this also gives it some stability, gives you a place to write, and it gives it stability for standing up. So just pop that in on that side, and then you can just spread it over. Because it's glue, you have a bit of wiggle room. Turn it over to check where your white is showing up. Slide it if you need to. Yep. Adjust it. And then if you just press on this section around the edges there, that's the only place you put the glue. So you can press on there to make sure it's all in place. So for the record, I'm going to add a couple dimensionals just right near the end. Just a couple, because it's going to be hanging off the side there. So we're going to pop that down and just slightly up. You don't want it too far up because you do want it to fit in the envelope. And then we're going to fussy cut the words. I find my scissors to stick on the side. So we'll just, there we go. This weather is so strange. I waited for a nice sunny day, and now it's sun is not really cooperating. I think it's putting too much shadow on. So I just cut those apart. A couple of reasons I did that. One is that way I can make it look more interesting the way I stick it down, and it helps to cover up more of the side of the blank space on the side. So we'll just turn these all over. Where's my glue? Just a bit of glue on there. And I'll stick this down, and so I hope you've enjoyed the video so far. If you have, give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to order any of these items, as I said, I will be listing them below in the description. And so I'll just use my tweezers to pick it up. So I'll just pop the words in randomly. So I know this long one is the word favorite. And I know the short one is the word my. And then another long one should be the word your. So feel free to change it up however you'd like. Use different backings. I'd love to see what you make, so if you do make something, put a picture in the comments below and make any comments if you'd like. So there we go. So there's our record player, complete with moving arm and moving record. And then you can fold it flat for your envelope, and you can write your message on the back. So that's the one we did here. This was the other sample I did, so I'll show you all the ones I did with the different In Good Taste paper. So there's one I used the gold arm, and that is kind of a slate color. And so I have different colors of the words on the back. I made a lot, like I said. So that's a similar style to that one, and they're nice dark wood grain. Another light color one here. That one is the back of a wood grain one. I just thought it had a kind of interesting coloration. Kind of a. These two are very similar. Just one's more gray and one's more blue, so they're kind of like knitted clothing. So those are all the ones I've made for the swaps with other demonstrators. And I just want to show you a couple other things that I did. So this one I copied from the Stampin' Up catalog. So same thing, but it's just done in colors. There's no embossing on there. And so that's done originally before I cut the heart out of the center. So that shows that when you stamp it, it does all the same color ink. And then I just colored the heart in with Blushing Bride, and then just did a little. So then I cut the heart out so I could use it similarly like I did for this one. Pop that there. That was my first try at doing the record player. Now this one is actually embossed in clear on the black. And then I stamped and embossed on some glimmer paper for the center here. And because I cut the hearts out, I could do the hearts on that paper as well. This is similar to one that was in the catalog, but I changed up slightly. And again, using the hearts separately. And this one, I saw another demonstrator show this one, so I just had to copy it. So this is the record stamp, but it's done in a different color, and then you just cut it out squiggly to make it look like the icing on your donuts. And then I added a bit of shimmer and just dotted it with various color pens, and again used the heart separately. So I hope you enjoyed that and got lots of ideas for using this wonderful stamp set. And please subscribe so you'll see some more videos I'll be doing soon, and as well as the blog. So I might do a blog with all these different ones I've done using this stamp set. I hope you've enjoyed that. And remember, when you're looking at the dies you have, look at them differently. So you would never thought that that would be the arm for a record player. So when you have your dies, look at them in a different light and try them out differently. Thanks for watching.